and welcome to Soulful Wahine, your safe space for all things mental health through a cultural lens. I'm your host, Keholani. Today's episode is something I would consider a bonus episode. It's still touching on a mental health topic, but it's definitely more personal. And honestly, this is probably the most vulnerable episode that I have to date. But let's hop into it. The theme of today's episode is grief in a month of celebration and learning how to hold joy and loss at the same time. For me personally, October has always felt very special and magical to me. Not only is it my birth month, but I love fall season. And if you know me personally, you know I love all things spooky and having to do with Halloween. However, October has now become a reminder of the loss that I have experienced and that my family has experienced. I have the amazing privilege of sharing my birth month with my beautiful auntie and my handsome cousin who are no longer here. And so this episode is again about how to navigate that tension, how to hold space for both joy and grief in the same breath. For most of us, birthdays usually mean celebrations, cake, laughter, getting together with family and friends. However, when those dates are also tied to people who we have lost, they can feel heavier, bittersweet, and even complicated. And October has become both for me, a time of celebration and deep gratitude, and a reminder of their absence. I quickly want to touch on what grief really looks like. Grief isn't something that we finish, okay? Grief is just something that we learn to deal with. And honestly, it shows up in very different ways for many of us. You know, sometimes you'll be laughing, dancing, and just having a grand old time. And then the next moment, you'll be in tears. Both are normal, both are okay. And milestones like birthdays, anniversaries, and holidays often bring grief back to the surface. And sometimes it brings it back stronger than we were expecting it to. I have a few other family members that are also October babies. And for me, I have always loved the fact that I get to share my birth month with others. Fun little fact in my family, for almost every day in the month of July, there is a birthday. And so the fact that July is so saturated with birthdays in my family, I loved having the few family members that I get to share October with. Does that make sense? But now, my auntie's birthday and my cousin's birthday are both quiet reminders. Oh, they're both quiet reminders of what's missing. But honoring their memory during this month has also been a way that has allowed me to keep their memory alive and to keep me feeling close to them. I'm sorry, I'm taking a lot of breaths, guys. I'm like really trying so hard to like not just break down right now. I want to touch on the fact that so many of us feel guilty for celebrating while grieving, you know, sometimes making us feel like we're moving on if we're celebrating. Or on the flip side, you know, sometimes we feel guilty for grieving when it's supposed to be a happy moment. And the truth is, you are allowed to do both. Celebrating does not mean that you are forgetting your loved ones, and grieving does not mean that you can't also laugh and experience joy. How do we hold space during these hard months? First one is rituals. Light a candle, cook their favorite meal, play a song or a movie that reminds you of them. Number two, set boundaries. It's okay to say no to events or even step back if you're feeling that your energy is low. And last one is community. Surround yourself with people who understand the weight of this month for you. And if you're up to it, let them celebrate and remember with you. I know that for me personally, I experienced a lot of guilt around my own birthday celebrations. I would think things, like, how can I be here laughing, or how can I be out here planning my next trip to Europe, or what I'm going to do, or whatever. And how am I doing all of this when they don't get to be here? And I felt this heavy guilt, especially when I would think of my little cousin Tony, because he was so young when he died. And so I would get really upset with myself at times and just be like, how are you over here celebrating? Or how are you over here thinking about this when Tony will never get to experience this, or Tony will never get to see this? And over time, I had to learn that joy and grief can coexist. I've had to learn that joy and remembrance do not cancel each other out, but rather can be held at the same time. Sorry, guys, I'm a fucking mess. Next, I want to leave you folks with some gentle practices that you folks can do whenever these hard moments resurface for you. So, write a letter to your loved one on their birthday. Tell them what you would have said if they were here. Create a small tradition just for you. So, some examples could be, again, cooking their favorite meal, or doing something that they loved. Growing up, my auntie Salote would always have her nails done, and sometimes she would take me with her sometimes. And so I actually wasn't gonna get my nails done for my birthday, but then I randomly thought of her and I just remembered how much she loved her nails. And so this weekend I went and got them done. But things like that, that's an example of something that you could do. Try to remind yourself that choosing to live life fully and celebrate your own life is honestly one of the most powerful ways that you can honor them and their lives. As we close out, I want to leave you folks with a quote that my former mentor and colleague Rich Garcia shared with me shortly after the Maui wildfires had happened. And that quote is that grief is just love that has nowhere to go. I don't know why, but that really resonates with me. And it allows me to understand the intensity of my grief as it comes up. It's this quote has allowed me to understand the intensity of my grief when it shows up, because sometimes, guys, that shit takes over me. Sometimes I'll randomly be thinking of my auntie, or I'll come across an old picture, or I'll see a picture of my little cousin. And it's like sometimes the grief just swallows me. And so this quote helps me to recognize, like, the reason it shows up so intensely is because I loved my auntie and my cousin so deeply. And that love just has nowhere to go. And it also, I don't know, guys, it also allows me to feel like it's an honor to grieve my loved ones, you know, because I got to experience them, because I got to experience their love. And so it's like anytime that I'm like thinking of my auntie or I'm thinking of my cousin, I always remind myself of this, like, nope, everything is coming up because you love them so much, and it's an honor to have experienced their love. It's an honor to have loved them so deeply, and to have been loved. And I know that for me, my grief showed up as anger for a very long time. I was so fucking angry with Maui County. I was so fucking angry with just how everything happened with the Maui wildfires. And I had to realize that I had to let that anger go, because it was so intense, guys. Like, yeah, I'm not gonna get into that today. We'll make a different episode on the wildfires. But one thing that helped me get rid of that anger, the reason I'm bringing all this up, one thing that helped me get rid of that anger is thinking of the fact that I got to experience my auntie, my beautiful auntie, and her amazing parents for my entire life. And I got to experience my little cousin Tony for his entire life. And when I think of it like that, when I think of the amazing fact that I got to live my entire life knowing my beautiful Auntie Salate, that anger disappears. I really ugly cried on here tonight, so I'm sorry, guys. But with all of that, I want to end with this. You are allowed to laugh, cry, celebrate, and grieve all in the same breath. Both your joy and your pain are sacred. And holding both is not a weakness, it's love. If you are currently grieving a loss, please know that you are seen here and that you are not alone. Until next time, as always, mahalo and aloha.